Welcome to the Random Horror Show. I am Keisha Lacey, your horror hostess. And the Random Horror Show presents spooky horror reads, 4 amazing authors from LaShane Ruffins, David J. Harrison, Christine Germain, and LaShane Arnett. 4 bone-chilling passages from each novel read by our wonderful authors. I may ask you, have any of y'all experienced ghosts, supernatural occurrences, or anything of that nature? Some of us have. Some of us may tell the tale. Some of us may carry it to our graves and not speaking to one soul about it. But there are some, just a few, just like me, that are born with a gift and a curse, just like Sadie. And tonight, as I present LaShane Arnett in her supernatural paranormal thriller, The Pain Eater. So grab your Bible, grab your Florida water. You might even have to go to a Catholic church to get the good stuff. Because tonight, LaShane Arnett is going to shimmer and frighten you with The Pain Eater.
Hi, this is LaShane Arnett. I'm going to be reading from my book, The Pain Eater, a Sadie Reed story, a paranormal thriller. I'm going to be reading from the chapter, The Shimmer. I hope you enjoy. Even on the darkest of days, the newness of purpose and love will come shining through. It's as though the ground had been removed from beneath me, and instead of falling, I hung suspended in the ether. My body hummed. If it weren't for me being able to see my reflection in Angel's mirror, I'd have thought I was glowing. I examined my arms from fingers to elbow. My skin was the same caramel color, the same softness, and my hands were the same piano hands, like Marge used to call them, long and thin. But there was a distinction without a difference, an oddity that occupied the same normalcy within me. It wasn't in my skin, nor in my fingers. It was Angel's gift. I knew she was telepathic, that she read palms and talked to the dead, though I'd never sat in on any of her seances. They weren't that common. I knew she had power because it flowed through me like blood. It altered my perception. Energies within the room were more pronounced. Various hues of blue, indigo, and gray suffused the air around us. Adrian stood next to me, inundated with grief and his duty to protect me. Noelle sat on the floor, crouched over her sorrow, and Leon's despondency swirled around his inability to grasp his mother's lifelessness. I need to call someone. Who do I call? He asked. He stood with his back to me, unable to look at his mother's body. He rocked back and forth with nervous energy, then rubbed his elbows to calm himself. He felt helpless. He needed to do something, be in control, make things happen. He functioned better when he got things done. I took one last look at Angel, kissed her hand, and walked over to Leon. I think you're supposed to call 911, ask for an ambulance. I touched him lightly on the arm, a soothing gesture. Okay. He opened the door. I'm going to go do that. He went out of the room, taking his despair with him. Sadie, are you okay? Adrian studied my face. I think I am now. Like Leon, I needed something to do. The grief would swallow me whole if I sat idle too long. I leaned over Noelle. Honey, we should go. We should help your dad. I urged her limp body off the floor and escorted her into the hall. She turned and hugged me. She's a tough cookie. From the first day I met her, I knew she was the kind of girl you wanted as a friend rather than an enemy, ready and willing to see any argument through. But not that day. That day she was soft and vulnerable. That day she struggled. It's okay, let it out. I rubbed her back. I can't believe she's gone. She let out a few sobs before stepping back. Her dark eyes searched for understanding. I looked at her the way a big sister would. She's still here with us, always. You know she ain't going nowhere, child, I said gently. Noelle's braids covered her face as she nodded. Her spirits lifted when a smile swept over across her face. She knew I was right. She knew Angel would be standing in the hall, hands on her hips, tapping her foot, annoyed that we were still hovering. She told me not to cry. Nope. Her exact words were, "You better not cry." Fuck. How's that fair? She tensed again, and sorrow pushed through her resistance. Noelle wasn't the type to hold things in. She wasn't built that way. She was, however, like Angel, easily annoyed, and her grief playing tug-of-war with Angel's last wishes was annoying her. The tough girl was fighting. Fuck, this sucks. She lashed at the pain in her heart. I stepped in closer. She could yell at me if she needed to, but she looked at me, and her body and voice softened. She told me she was at peace. Do you think she's at peace? Her eyes begged for truth. Yes, she is, I said. She believed me, but the sadness, salty and wet, kept falling down her face. It's okay to be sad, I added. It's okay to feel what you're feeling. Ignoring grief wasn't healthy, but being consumed by grief was out of the question. Just try to be strong too, okay? It's a delicate procedure, placing one's will over one's emotions. Your dad needs you. I hoped her desire to help her father would ease the hold grief had on her. Okay. She took in a deep breath and wiped her face. Okay, I'll try. A few minutes later, her body went stiff. She remembered why she stood in the hall crying. She was letting grief win. I didn't blame her. Angel just died. It hadn't even been an hour since she went limp in my arms. I looked away, tried to heed my own words and stay strong. I blinked a few times. No tears, I whispered. Adrian came out of the bedroom holding a box of tissues. Before he closed the door, I could see he laid Angel down, closed her eyes, and tucked her nicely under the gray comforter. He handed the box of tissues to Noelle. Her face was wet, swollen, and puffy. He hid a few under his clenched fingers. His eyes were red under the lashes. He didn't have to hide his grief, but he tried. Averted eye contact. Thanks. Noelle blew her nose and stared longingly at the door. I just hate to think her body is just sitting there. She couldn't take it anymore. She bolted down the hall. She needed to get away. She needed to mourn. Should we go after her? Adrian reached to stop her, dropping the tissue on the floor. No, just leave her. I picked it up. She needs to feel. I handed Adrian the tissue and noticed a slight shimmer coming off one of the framed pictures hanging in the hall. At first, I thought light was being cast from Angel's room, but the picture was too far down the hall and Adrian had shut the door behind him. The hall light wasn't on, so the hallway was still dark. I narrowed my eyes, blinked the wetness away to see better. It was a golden light shimmering around one photo. Do you see that? I pointed down the hall. See what? Adrian turned and looked behind him. Am I delusional? Do I actually see it glowing? Sadness does things to people. I looked back. The picture, it looks like it's glowing, I continued in my head. Adrian scratched his head, staring down the dark hall. I don't see nothing. He studied my face again, his eyes questioning my lucidity. Never mind. I'm just feeling off. A sense of dread loomed in the darkness. It was anchored to the glowing photo. I was curious, but not enough to get sucked into another striky stronghold. I turned and headed for the kitchen to find Leon. On my way there, I examined everything. The colors around the entire house were off. The grays and blacks were muted. The brown of the baseboard was brown, uninteresting. Same with the white of the kitchen table. But the green of the plants hanging over the kitchen window were vibrant and striking. The tree you could see through the window was alive and beautiful. Its beauty was evinced through the rich color of its bark. There were certain objects in Angel's house that had a shimmer to them, just like the photo in the hall. They glowed. Adrian followed me as I walked around the house like a person who just regained their sight. "What's up? Are you okay?" He looked me square in the eyes. "Yes, I'm just reeling, trying to wrap my head around everything. I decided not to tell him Angel gave me her gift, at least not until I understood it better." "Oh, 'cause you're walking around like you don't know who or what you are." He looked deeper, tried to see into my soul. "Angel?" he whispered slowly. "What?" I took a step back. "Adrian, no, it's me." I laughed a little, then pulled him closer. "I'm just a little out of it, okay?" I whispered. "Okay." He was suspicious. "Really?" I grabbed his hand and squeezed it. "It's me." I talked to his heart. He believed me. Restlessness coursed through my veins as if I had taken straight shots of espresso. This made the wait for the ambulance excruciating. The police were the first to arrive and had already gone back, saw Angel, and were finished asking Noelle, Adrian, and me questions. The officer had gone into the kitchen with Leon to verify timelines. Why did she have bandages on her head? When did she get hurt? What time did he arrive? What time did we arrive? Where were we when she died? The officer wrote Leon's answers down on a notepad. Noelle sat comfortably in her grief at the kitchen table, while Adrian and I stood in the doorway listening to a very distinguished Leon recount the events of the morning. Adrian's eyes kept glancing down as it fiddled my thumbs. "Hey, you sure you're okay?" I wasn't myself. My eyes were playing tricks on me. There were shadows and shimmers everywhere. I needed to tell him about Angel giving me her gift and the things I was seeing. I felt crazy. "Sadie?" he questioned again when I didn't answer. I pulled him to the next room. "I'm fine. Sort of. It's just that Angel..." The wailing of the ambulance's siren interrupted me. "Hold that thought." I jetted past the two clients still sitting in the waiting room. "She's this way." I stood on the porch and pointed behind me. The officer came through the kitchen, put a hand up to stop me where I stood, and took over. "The body's this way," he said. The EMT's movements were swift and focused. They brushed past me through the tiny doorway. "Be gentle with her." I looked back at the client sitting on the couch as I passed them. "I'm going to ask them to leave," I whispered to Adrian. He looked at me strangely. I approached the clients with caution. I wasn't sure if asking them to leave was insensitive, but they needed to go. "I'm sorry, but we're closed at this time." The man I approached was clearly distraught. He sat slumped over his knees, holding his tear-drenched face in his hands. He was a regular. I'd seen him in many times before. "If you guys come back in a few days, I'll be more than willing to talk with you. Help you out?" He didn't speak. He just glared at me, then nodded in compliance. He was a pudgy, middle-aged man with light brown hair. A huge scar made up the right side of his face from mouth to eye. It was startling, and I tried not to stare. When I grabbed his elbow to help him off the couch, his past ripped through my mind. Peter, screeching car, motorcycle, pain, death, guilt, surgery, pills, surgery, guilt. Sadness. "Peter?" I asked. "Yes." He dissected me with curious eyes, wondered how I knew his name. I knew more than that. I knew his pain, his misery. I felt the hot, searing pain of asphalt that grated his face at 60 miles an hour when he blew through the red light into the side of a car. I knew his thoughts and the questions that plagued his mind when they pulled the woman's lifeless body out of the car. Why aren't I dead? Why didn't I die? An overwhelming need to console him surged within me. It's going to be okay, I said. He looked at me and bawled. His eyes pleaded for help. He was lost. Thought he'd be lost forever since Angel was gone. You're going to be just fine, I reassured him. Leaning forward, I grabbed his other elbow and was instantly pulled to the man sitting next to him. With my mind's eye, I stood directly in front of him, nose to nose, mouth to mouth. Only it wasn't a man at all. It was Peter's essence, his despair, his addiction, his shame. It was a black entity tethered to him. Pain and guilt shimmered in its eyes, flickering within it like a flame. It was unaware and had no real features. It didn't talk. It was buoyant, dismal. My heart beat faster. I felt hot. My eyes were wide with awe as I stared at his depression made manifest. I backed up, almost falling over. Peter, I will help you. I choked the words out, spoke to his hopelessness, then fell backwards. Adrian was there quick, catching me before I hit the floor. Both he and Peter got me to the couch. Dizzy, my eyes went in and out of focus, but I could see Peter's essence clearly. It flowed next to his body, tethered by his need for self-punishment. It was like a shadow, never going to leave his side. Being in its presence pulled me into emptiness, a void deep in the pit of my stomach. I can't breathe. I grabbed Adrian's arms. The walls were moving, inching their way towards us, boxing us in. An intense, menacing force crept up on me. I felt trapped, and the feeling in my stomach grew. I curled my legs up and dug my fingers into Adrian's arms. I wanted to crawl up into myself and disappear. I needed release. I needed out of the room, out of the situation. Peter, I can. I tried to talk. Adrian intervened. Dude, hey. He snapped his fingers in Peter's face till Peter looked at him. Yeah, you need to leave. Adrian couldn't see the entity, but I was certain its dark presence affected him. Is she gonna be okay? Peter, too focused on me, ignored Adrian's insolent tone. I nodded, tried to catch my breath. It felt as though the air had been siphoned out of the room. Peter was reluctant to leave, but he took one look at Adrian and clumsily walked out the front door, taking his entity with him. The air in the room returned. The emptiness that churned in my stomach vanished. Sadie, should I have the paramedics look at you? Adrian knew the paramedics wouldn't be able to help, but he was panicked. No, I just need to catch my breath. I breathed in deeply. You sure? Yeah, I'm fine. I lied. I didn't understand what was happening to me, nor what would happen next. I felt lost. My life would never be the same. An Angel was really gone, and I wasn't Sadie anymore. There was someone new, and that scared the shit out of me. How was I going to do it without Angel's help? I'm kind of freaking out here, and I'm just so sad. I started crying. He held me tight. I know, this sucks. He kissed the top of my head. I love you. I'm here for you. I'm not going anywhere. I was warm all over. His love shielded me. It wrapped itself around me and cradled my sorrow. For a moment, all fear went away, and I felt like me again. I love you too. That was an excerpt from my book, The Pain Eater, a Sadie Reed story by LaShane Arnett. I was reading from the chapter, The Shimmer. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.